Alright, so about 4 months ago, I released my custom mod for Celeste called Cosmic Concrete. It consists of around 10 rooms of dashless gameplay that ranges from beginner to advanced difficulty. And today I want to take you guys on a bit of a retrospective journey. I want to provide a little insight into what inspired me to make this mod, as well as my thought process while building this. And finally, some of my post-release thoughts and how this impacted me. So, with that being said, let's get on to the rest of the video. So I want to talk about my inspirations first. There are a fair few, but here are the main ones that I want to talk about. The first one I want to talk about is a map from the Gallery collab, 2024 collab, called Blue Wanderer. This map, I would say, is by far the most influential for me during the process of making this mod. A lot of aspects of this map are reflected in my own. For example, the difficulty range, the colors, the dashless gameplay, and so much more. However, I have to constantly think to myself, how can I make this mod my own, rather than a mere rip-off version of a pre-existing mod? And I think that these kinds of thoughts allow me to branch out and experiment a lot. So, for example, the use of entities that I personally haven't seen much in dashless gameplay, such as zip blocks, as well as the use of moving parts, such as switch gates. And the second inspiration that I want to talk about is actually from a different game entirely. This game is called Geometry Dash, and the level I want to talk about with regards to Geometry Dash is a newly released level called Nullscapes. And now you may be wondering, hey, this is an entirely different game altogether. How did this ever possibly manage to inspire you within a game that's so fundamentally different from each other? And the main thing that inspired me, as you could probably tell, is the song. And to me, the atmosphere that this song has seems ominous, yet relaxing and calm, which I think is reflected pretty well in the cold color palette that consists of colors such as blue, purple, and green, as well as the space backgrounds and limited lighting, hence why everything seems a little bit darker than what it would normally appear to be. And additionally, the fact that Nullscapes is robot only causes the gameplay in that level to revolve more around timings and precision rather than fast-paced gameplay. So by making the gameplay dashless, players are forced to adapt to their newly limited skill set, and I think these limitations allows for creativity to manifest, as I too have to adapt to my new situation while building, which I personally think is really neat. Now onto the decoration aspect, I want to talk about my main inspiration for that, or one of my main inspirations, I should say. This being the vanilla contest that released earlier on. Now, you might have noticed that throughout the entirety of the mod, there are no custom assets used. So that means that everything in the mod comes from the default tile set entirely, or I simply recolored them, as is the case for blocks such as the girder blocks, as well as some of the concrete blocks, hence the name Cosmic Concrete. And like with Nullscapes, I think this kind of limitation allows me to experiment a lot in terms of decoration. So I do believe that I pulled off the atmospheric and sort of lo-fi kind of vibe off pretty nicely. And I think the map as a whole is quite pretty and highly appealing to look at, in my opinion. And my last inspiration in terms of gameplay this time is a mapper and creator called Fonda1515. And you may recognize this name from the expert map from Strawberry Jam called Clockwork. And now if you played Strawberry Jam before, you'll probably be wondering, Clockwork? That map has so many moving parts, and it also does so much with dash mechanics. How did this ever manage to inspire you? And now, given what I've established beforehand about the mod, I wouldn't blame you. In terms of gameplay, the main thing that Fonda1515 does really nicely is the deliberate repetition of certain movements. So for example here, in which you have to spam down to get the pufferfish out of the way before the walls essentially crush you. Or later on in the expert hard side for Clockwork, in which you have to, well, spam downwards so that this time your head doesn't get impaled by the spikes above. And to me, having to repeat the same movement over and over again established some kind of identity in the room, which causes players to associate said movement, in my case, jumping away from the wall and back, and later on in the final room, where you have to constantly jump back and forth to escape the switch gate beneath you while moving around spikes and spinners. So in a way, you could consider this room to be an extreme case of the idea of repetition, in which by placing down a whole string of jump crystals, your primary instinct is probably going to be to spam the jump button, which would probably get you to the safe ledge up above. And additionally, in the same room, you are required to glide back and forth over and over again to avoid hitting the spiders. Spinners, while a switch gate pushes you down from above. And finally, I wanted to talk about post-release thoughts. So, firstly, I want to talk about my opinions on mod creating beforehand versus afterwards. Now, beforehand, I generally thought of Celeste modding to be fairly similar with other games that I've played in the past with the level editor. So, being familiar with level creating in games such as Geometry Dash, I thought that the creating process would be fairly smooth sailing. However, I was not expected for the sheer amount of work I would eventually put into this project, as I started this on April 13th and finishing the final word of this video on September 9th, 2024. To say this map was a massive undertaking would be putting it nicely. That was 150 days of my life spent working on this project. Thus, my opinions on Celeste modding today have drastically shifted. I have a far greater deal of respect to other mappers who have made mods way longer than mine, as well as gaining a newfound appreciation for a lot of maps that I would have brushed off and forgotten over time had I not made my own. And now, I want to talk about what I learned about myself during this process. Now, this is the part in which the folks at the IB get excited about, the part where I reflect on my whole journey, from the moment I placed the first block in the editor to now. And to be honest, I did learn that I suffer from some degree of overconfidence, such as when I thought that creating in general would generally take a fairly short time, and I would experience very little roadblocks along the way. However, I will say that I am proud of my determination and my commitment to my mod. And seeing its development through to the end and overcoming the numerous obstacles that came along the way was really something that I was proud of, and I still look back on it fondly. So, in short, do I think this was all worth it in the end? Yes. Though, to be honest, I don't think I would have had the same response if I didn't have so much support while building this mod. I want to thank you guys for following me on Instagram, so as well as putting up with my constant posting on other social media platforms such as Discord. I really am thankful for each and every one of you for coming along to join my ride. And thank you especially if you went out of your way, especially to check out Celeste and actually play it for yourself. And even better, to play my own mod for yourself and just for fun. And on the topic of fun, I sincerely hope you had a lot of fun with it, and I hope you continue to play other amazing Celeste content that you could find on the internet. So, thank you all for listening, and have a good day.